The Braves take on the Mets game one. That's going to be a 5:10 p.m. Eastern first pitch in game one of the doubleheader. The New York Mets are minus 160 with the total at 6.5 juice to the under. The Braves are plus $1.40 for some money line cash. And if you like them on the run line, they're minus 160 catching the 1.5. Kyle Muller for the Braves, Marcus Stroman for New York. And despite yet another losing day on my Patreon webpage, we still improved to 4-1 in our last 5 board member tier package picks on that Patreon site. We're also hitting at 64% our last 25 board member tier package picks in that very same category. We currently have over 950 folks who are signed up and active on that Patreon page. And if you want to see which one of these YouTube picks I'm actually betting on personally, link for that site is in the description section below. Once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, the first place Mets have won 5 out of their last 7 ball games, 30-15 straight up at Citi Field. And as a matter of fact, the Mets are currently leading the majors in fewest hits allowed at home. They're holding their opponents to just 6 hits a game in Flushing, Queens. They're also holding their opponents to less than 2.7 runs a game on their home field as well. Marcus Stroman has a 2.58 ERA and a 1.08 whip. The righties also got 93 strikeouts thus far in the season. Now they're taking on an Atlanta squad who lost 6 out of their last 10 themselves. They also have a losing record on the road. This Atlanta lineup is in the bottom 10 of the league in road hits. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, the Braves are in the bottom 5 in walks allowed on the road. Kyle Muller is just 1-3 thus far in the year and doesn't even have 20 innings of work under his belt. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the New York Mets minus 160 and the under 6.5 in game one. Next matchup, Nats, Phillies, 7:05 East. The Philadelphia Phillies are minus 120, numbers 9.5. Spencer Howard for Philadelphia. Joe Ross for the Nationals. Now, Joe Ross is averaging over a strikeout an inning. The righties fan 91 batters and has a 1.20 whip. And despite their current skid, Washington still has a winning record against NL East opponents. This Nats lineup is in the top 3 in road hits on average per game. Trey Turner's batting .319 with 18 homers and an .888 OPS. The Washington shortstop is currently 5th in the majors in batting average. Meanwhile, Juan Soto leads the club in RBI. The outfielder has knocked in 55 runners and ranks 10th in the majors in OPS. Soto's currently got an OPS of .925. Now they're taking on a Phillies club who has Spencer Howard on the bump here today. Howard's still looking for his first win of the season. The righty's got a 5.11 ERA and a 1.46 whip. The Phillies also lost 4 out of their last 6. They currently rank in the bottom 10 in the league in hits allowed per game. Meanwhile, offensively, this Phillies lineup is averaging nearly double-digit strikeouts a game. When it comes to the number in this one, Philadelphia is 28-22 to the under in divisional play. Meanwhile, the Nats saw their last 4 straight road games stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Washington Nationals plus $1 in the under 9.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Blue Jays versus the Red Sox, 7:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The Boston Red Sox are minus 130, numbers 11. Nick Pivetta for Boston, Thomas Hatch for Toronto. Now Hatch is making his debut here this evening. The Blue Jays have also lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games. And in addition to that, they currently have a losing record within divisional play. They're taking on a first-place Boston club who went 5-1 in their last 6 themselves, 31-20 straight up as the home team. The Bo Sox are in the top 5 in scoring, top 3 in hits. Rafael Devers is leading the majors in RBI. The third baseman has knocked in 80 runners, and he's also hit 26 home runs, which is 5th in the league as well. Devers also has an OPS of .926. Meanwhile, Xander Bogaerts is in the top 10 in the league in batting average himself. Xander's hitting .309 along with 182 total bases. Now, this Boston pitching staff has racked themselves up a bunch of strikeouts this season as well. They're in the top 10 in striking batters out. And of course, Nick Pivetta, he's 8-4 in the year with 117 strikeouts and just 103 innings of work. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Boston went 7-3 to the under in their last 10 outings, 5-0 to the under in their last 5 at home. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays saw 4 out of their last 5 road games stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Boston Red Sox minus 130 and the under 11. Next contest, Reds versus the Cubs, 8:05 East. The Chicago Cubs are minus 135, totals 8.5. Kyle Hendricks for Chicago, Wade Miley for Cincinnati. And as good as Miley's been for this Reds team, Cincinnati's dropped 6 out of their last 9 ball games, and they actually got shut out twice during that span. This Reds pitching staff is in the bottom 10 in runs allowed, bottom 3 in walks allowed. They're also giving up over 8.3 hits a game. They're taking on a Chicago club who plays their best baseball on their home field. The Cubbies are currently 30-18 straight up at Wrigley Field. And they're also winning 60% of their home games against the NL Central. Now, starting pitcher Kyle Hendricks, he also has a dozen wins on the season this year already. 12-4 straight up for the righty, 3.61 ERA, and 87 strikeouts. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, 13 out of Chicago's last 20 divisional games at home stayed under the line. They're officially 28-17 to the under against the NL Central. Meanwhile, the Reds went 13-7 to the under in their divisional road games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago Cubs minus 135 and the under 8.5. Next game, Tigers versus the Twins, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Minnesota Twins are minus 170 with the total at 10. Michael Pineda for Minnesota, Matt Manning for Detroit. Now, the Tigers have won 7 out of their last 10 ball games despite their recent skid. They're also allowing just 3.3 walks a game when they travel. Now, they're taking on a last-place Twins club who's 16 games under 500, and they also lost 7 out of their last 10. Now, the Twins currently have a losing record within divisional play. They're also in the bottom 3 in the majors in runs allowed per contest. Mike Pineda comes into today's game with a 4-5 record, despite some fairly good numbers. Just can't get the win. Now, total-wise, Minnesota's 13-6 to the over against the AL Central at home. They're also 35-15 to the over in all of their divisional contests. Meanwhile, the Tigers went 29-22 to the over when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Detroit Tigers plus 1.5 and the over 10 runs. Next matchup, White Sox, Royals, 8:10 Eastern start time. The Chicago White Sox are minus $1.25, totals 9.5. Dallas Keuchel for Chicago, Mike Minor for Kansas City. Now, Minor's just 7-8 with a 5.45 ERA and a 1.30 WHIP. And despite a nice little winning streak for Kansas City, they're still 13 games below 500, and they have a losing record within divisional play. As a matter of fact, the Royals have only won 39% of their divisional games at Kauffman Stadium this year. They're also in the bottom 5 in runs allowed, bottom 3 in hits allowed at home. They're taking on a first-place White Sox club who's been pretty dominant in divisional play themselves. Chicago's currently 32-17 straight up against the AL Central, 13-6 straight up in their divisional road games. The Chicago lineup's in the top 5 in scoring, top 5 in road hits. Tim Anderson's batting .304 with 30 extra base hits and 155 total bases. Meanwhile, Jose Abreu's third in the majors in RBI with 75 of them. And when it comes to the pitching in this one, the White Sox are leading the Bigs in striking batters out on the road. Now, Dallas Keuchel 7-3 thus far in this season, 64 strikeouts thus far for the lefty. When it comes to the total in this one, Chicago went 68% to the over in their divisional road games. Meanwhile, the Royals went 14-9 to the over in their divisional home games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago White Sox minus $1.25 and the over 9.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Rockies versus the Angels, 9:38 East. The LA Angels are minus 145, total 7.5. Shohei Ohtani for Los Angeles, German Marquez for Colorado. Now Marquez has 8 wins thus far in the season, 3.50 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP. The righties also struck out 119 batters and averages a strikeout an inning. Now Colorado's done a nice job in interleague play as well. 8-4 straight up in their last dozen against the American League. They also successfully cashed in on the run line nearly 70% of those interleague games. This Colorado lineup, is in the top 10 in fewest strikeouts at the plate. Raimel Tapia, he's batting .276 with 25 extra base hits and 132 total bases. Meanwhile, Ryan McMahon, he's hit 35 extra base hits along with 16 homers and 50 RBI. Now they're taking on an Angels club who lost 2 out of their last 3 home games. They've also lost 3 out of their last 5 interleague contests at Angel Stadium as well. And as good as Ohtani's been on the bump here this year, the Angels still walk more batters at home than any other team. They're also in the bottom 5 in runs allowed per game. Now when it comes to the number in this one, LA's last 3 straight home games all got over the line. 30-14 of the over at Angel Stadium for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Colorado Rockies plus 1.5. And the over 7.5 runs. And with that, guys, now we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Astros versus the Mariners. 10:10 Eastern first pitch. The Houston Astros are minus 175. Totals 8.5 juice to the over. Luis Garcia for Houston. Darren McCowan for Seattle. Now McCowan's thrown just 5 whole innings for the Mariners this season. Seattle's in the bottom 10 in striking batters out. The Mariners are also having a lot of problems at the plate. They're dead last in the majors in hits on average per game, bottom 3 in home scoring. As a matter of fact, the Mariners are averaging only 3.8 runs a game at T-Mobile Park. They're taking on a Houston club who's on a 3-game winning streak, 7-3 straight up in their last 10. Now, the first place Astros have also played quite well against the AL West. 28-13 straight up in their divisional contest this year. Houston leads the majors in runs and hits on the road. Jose Altuve has hit 23 homers and knocked in 59. Meanwhile, Yuli Gurriel's batting .313 with 59 ribbies himself. The first baseman is 7th in the league in batting average. Meanwhile, defensively, this Houston pitching staff has also been really good on the road. They're in the top 5 in fewest roads allowed on the road, and they're also in the top 3 in fewest hits allowed on the road as well. Now, Luis Garcia, he's 7-5 on the year, 2.86 ERA and a 1.06 WHIP. The righties also struck out 105 batters in just over 91 innings. And when it comes to the total on this one, Houston's 25-16 to the over against the AL West. They've also gone 57-43 to the over for the entire season. Give me the Houston Astros minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my Patreon website. I like the New York Mets minus 160, under 6.5 in Game 1 of the doubleheader. I like Washington plus $1, under 9.5. Boston minus 130, under 11. Chicago Cubs minus 135, under 8.5 runs. Detroit plus 1.5, over 10. Chicago White Sox minus $1.25, over 9.5. Colorado plus 1.5, over 7.5 runs. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 4-1 in our last 5 board member tier package picks on my Patreon website. We're also hitting at 64% our last 25 board member tier package picks in that very same category. I'm going to lean toward the Houston Astros minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Of that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day, and that goes to, it's from our YouTube platform, and that goes to Trap Boy Sr., who said yesterday, Brock, you killed the over and under and games. Sorry I missed out. Well, Trap Boy, no harm, no foul in taking a day off. Sometimes you need that. You can't fire away every single day. And nothing wrong with a day off. And, hey, let's get back at it today here, man. Let's get the job done. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my Patreon website, just keep in mind Patreon's going to bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you're going to get access to that content through the end of July. And then if you continue to opt in, you're going to get billed again on August 1st. And then you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of August. I always tell folks the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.